Welcome to Stargate SG-1 for the first time. Still, not a Star Trek podcast. My name is Jeff Akin, and I'm watching Stargate SG-1 for the first time.
And I'm Brent Allen, and I'm watching Stargate SG-1 for the 47th time. Jeff and I are two veteran Star Trek podcasters who joined forces some time ago to bring you Babylon 5 for the first time. We had so much fun doing that. We said, let's do it again with a show that so many of you out there said, please do this show.
We're giving SG-1 that first time treatment. We'll talk about what that means here in a second. For me, this is literally my first time. So you get to join me and relive your first time viewing experience as I watch it.
And even though I have seen this show 47 times, for the first time, I am going through Stargate SG-1 looking for all those things that the show is trying to teach us. You know, those lessons that hold up a mirror to society, give us hope that things might be better in the future, or just tell us how to be better human beings to one another.
And since this is still not a Star Trek podcast, we're going to bring over one of our favorite games that we started on Babylon 5 for the first time. And that's the Rule of Three. The Rule of Three limits us to 3 references to Star Trek.
That's it. 3. One of those plays. No substitutions, exchanges, every.
And when we make one of those references, you're going to hear everybody's favorite sound.
But, you know, there's also the possibility, nay, the probability of us making Babylon 5 references from time to time, since, you know, Jeff, that's really kind of our current jam. And if we do that, you're going to hear.
Oh, yes.
All right. We're watching The Nox. Let's get into this one. If I remember right, I thought that this is going to be, they're going to go to this planet. The Nox are going to be an alien species. We're going to get another alien species. There's going to be like the camp over here that are the misplaced humans, the camp over here that are the Nox, and there's like this Cold War thing. And SG-1's going to go in and try and figure out, like, are they enemies or will they be allies?
Are they enemies or allies? Okay. All right. We'll see. We'll see in just a moment. Hey, this is the 8th episode of season 1. The original air date, August 29th, 1997. A few notes about this episode. Jeff, there is a new alien word that I would like to point out.
A word, okay.
A new alien word. You're going to hear this for the very first time in this episode. It is a word you're going to hear quite a bit, and so I just want you to be familiar with it, and I like it. I'm just pointing out that this, honestly, is the first time that we hear this word in the show. The word is Sholva.
Sholva.
Sholva. Take a guess. What do you think Sholva means?
It's like it's probably like a patak.
Close. It's the gold word for traitor.
Oh, traitor. Okay, yeah, that's deeper.
So I mean, not quite the same oomph as patak, but it is that same. It's in that vein for sure.
Okay.
Jeff, I have a question. Did you ever see the movie Fanboys?
I don't think so.
Okay, so this was a movie. I'm 98% sure I'm thinking of the right movie. This was a movie that came out right around the time of Star Wars Episode 1.
Mm-hmm. And
like a friend, like is this group of guys, their friend was going to die from like cancer. And they were expecting him to pass away before Episode 1 got released. So they go on this like cross-country trip to the Skywalker Ranch, George Lucas's Skywalker Ranch, try to sneak in and see the film.
Okay.
For their friend who's like about to die. And along the way, they meet lots of other nerds. Like there's great Seth Rogen plays a Trekkie who just, I mean, it is awful what they do to Trekkies in this movie. But there is a clip from Stargate SG-1 that is in that film, and it's from this episode.
Okay, cool. Very cool.
Anyway, one of the things that we are going to like about this show, Jeff, and we're going to do it. We haven't done it yet. This is another first in this episode. Is pointing out all the Star Trek actor crossovers.
Ooh, okay.
Now, I'm not talking about necessarily the one-offs, okay? I'm talking about series regulars, maybe recurring roles within the Star Trek world. And like I said, this episode marks the first of such appearances. I'm not going to tell you who, what, when, or how much this person is going to show up in this episode. I'm just interested to see if you catch it. My guess is you're going to catch it in about 3.4 seconds.
That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure.
That's actually a lot of time. Might actually be more 0.34 seconds.
Okay.
It's possible.
Just know, everyone, just expect to be let down. Just
And if not, I'm just going to be sitting here going, All right, Jeff, let's go ahead and jump into this episode today. Hey, just a reminder for those of you on the audio world out there, if you're just joining us for the first time, the way this works is Jeff and I are going to watch this episode for the first time right now. Like, we're going to go watch this episode. We're going to break and watch the episode. And if you're joining us on YouTube, you're actually going to get the cool, like, reaction video. We're going to do this as a reaction video, and you're going to catch that right now. If you'd like to see the full unedited reaction, head over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Babylon5 first. That's our main channel right now. You guys can check out some of the cool behind the scenes on that.
So for our audio listeners, if you're on a podcasting app like Good Pods or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any of those, we're going to skip this whole next part. So you're going to join us after we've watched the episode. Make sure that you stick around through the little break, because then I'm going to do the podcast thing, right? I'm going to talk about my first experience, my impressions, my thoughts, things like that. And Brent is going to share any of the sci-fi messages that he was able to extract from this one. So let's get into the Nox.
Let's do it.
Chevron 7 locked.
All right, Jeff, that was the Nox. You said it'd be an alien people that they're trying to go out and talk to and understand, and technologies and all that. What'd you think of this episode?
This was a good episode,
right?
It was a hard episode because it was just, I mean, it was fun. I enjoyed watching it, but we talked about this as we were watching it, but it's just, there were these two groups of people that had all of the answers between them, but refused to step out of their own worlds for a second and communicate in any way. And it got really frustrating at some point. You know, it's just, you need to go. Well, we need to stay here and protect you. No, you need to go. No, we need to stay here and protect you. Blah, 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 blah. And it just kept going and going. And then because they couldn't communicate, Brent, they killed a kid.
Right?
They killed a kid. Wow. That's gutsy, right?
Yeah.
8th episode in to kill a kid. I can only think of one other series that would do something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Except he came back in this one.
Exactly.
You know, he didn't end the episode dead, and it wasn't from some it was for superiority complex, but
I really enjoyed some of Jack's leadership in this episode. There was a moment, and we talked about it again during the viewing itself, but the mission parameters change, right? So they get there, Stargate disappears, all their gear disappears, and they see Apophis. And so they have like this, what are we going to do? And everybody's like, we go after Apophis. But Jack's like, Daniel, what do you think here? Sam, what are you thinking here? And then the question I loved so much, Tilk, this dude was a god to you. Are you going to be good? You know, going 1-to-1. And what was just so beautiful. They set up their attack and they go in, they ambush him, and they just get rocked. I mean, seconds, and they're getting blasted. They are so out of their league fighting these Jaffa. And Tilk's left standing, and Apophis tries, right? You know, come back to us. And oh man, Tilk, he just looks at him and he's just like, I'm going to die free, ready to go. And he stood to it. And like, I've really liked Tilk up to this point, but here it's just like this, like, he's my favorite guy. He's my favorite character right at this point right now. Tilk is awesome.
sure.
I liked that they found, I liked that it was aliens, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had an impression early in the series that it was just going to be humans, the diaspora of humans out throughout, you know, the galaxy sort of thing. And everybody was going to speak English, and the alienness we'd have would be the cultures that formed, you know, amongst the people that were there. But no, we got aliens last week. We got aliens this week. Still a really cool, like, way to work around getting them to speak English. You know, we learned it. Okay, cool. Whatever. Hand wave. That works.
Yeah.
I really felt like the Nox in this episode, they reminded me of a group in the Wheel of Time book series called the Tuatha'an, or the Tinkers. And they follow the way of the leaf. The way of the leaf is you just go the way the wind blows you, you know? You don't fight back, you just go with it. And they die and get slaughtered a lot, but they are one of the, like, longest continuous groups of people in this series of books. because they keep going. And I feel like that's a lot of what the Nox were. And they have like this philosophy, you know, of like, we don't kill, we don't harm others. And Antaeus, and
not Amadeus,
right?
Antaeus.
Antaeus. But he said, talking about the little kid that ended up dying, Jack was showing him the bow and arrow and the stuff, and Antaeus asked, what were you doing? He's like, well, I was trying to, protect him. He's like, you were trying to protect his body after poisoning his mind.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. So good.
Yeah.
Armin Shimmerman, right? I mean, holy crud. There's our guy in this, and he was awesome. Armin, he's good in everything he does.
Yeah.
And this was fun. It was a different role for him, a lot more, reserved and kind of quiet, but he had that confidence of someone who's 432 years old, or whatever.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed him in this.
Jeff, I don't know if you caught that particular moment. It wasn't Antaeus who said that, it was the other guy, Ofer.
Yeah, the most eldest guy.
But like what I loved is he's like, so how old are you? And he goes, well, how do you measure time? And he goes, well, one revolution is 24 hours and it's 365 days in a year. And then he immediately goes, well, then by your counting, I'm 432. Like math went that fast for us.
Boom.
Like he tracked with 432. That's how old I am.
There was a real good guys versus bad guys thing. What's good? What's bad? I like the way the Nox were like, Jack's like, they're the bad guys. They're bad. And then the girl was like, yeah, but you attacked them. Like, what is good? What is bad? What else was in there? I talked about it in there. I liked the shield. Apophis has this energy shield thing and now apparently can disappear. The energy shield, inspired very much by Dune. The slow blade will penetrate the shield. It's kind of a velocity thing. It's a non-Newtonian fluid kind of a shield.
Mm-hmm.
But he was able to disappear at the end. He was able to use that technology that the Nox use. And so my question in the ongoing of Stargate is that now technology the Goa'uld have?
So Jeff, I just can't believe you, man. You're awful. How could you be so dumb on your first watch to not understand exactly what happened?
Am I not doing this right?
You're not doing this right.
I figured.
You're so dumb. It was so obvious.
Clearly.
I actually wrote this down because hey, for those of you out there who may not know, I'm not actually making fun of Jeff. I'm not making fun of anyone.
Making fun of a situation.
Yes. So Jeff, you know how there's this thing where when you've seen a show so many times, the obvious is really obvious. And you become a little incredulous that other people don't pick up on it because it's just so, obvious. But then if you actually are watching it with somebody for the first time, they may not actually understand it in that same way. But they go back and watch it again and they'll be like, oh yeah, how could I have not understood that? This is one of those examples.
Okay.
Apophis did not pick up the technology of how to disappear. When he disappeared, it was because Antaeus and the other people had finished the deal with Nefreu and they disappeared Apophis. They protected Apophis and he goes, no, what are you doing? They're going to come back and kill you. Because Jack understood in that moment that it was the Nox who Apophis got noxed.
You got noxed.
So yeah. So the Goa'uld do not have that technology. They don't know how that works.
Okay. That makes so much. I mean, it does. It makes a lot of sense. Cause my thought watching it was out of nowhere, right? That arrow's flying and you and I were on the same page of like an arrow shouldn't be able to penetrate this. And so I halfway expected it to bounce off the shield. But there's a second that it goes through.
Now, if you threw it like a javelin, then it could go through, but not off an arrow. Yeah, not coming off a bow.
There's a split second where it penetrates the shield, and like in my head, I'm like, oh my god, it's gonna work, and then he disappears. But he had like his hands up and was doing stuff, and so in my head, I was like, oh my god, he did the thing, and oh no, because I mean, Goa'uld get that technology, it's game over. You can't fight that, so
yeah.
But no, I thought I really enjoyed this episode, and I think I'm looking forward to this next piece right here because I think there was some pretty cool stuff in this episode from a sci-fi messages standpoint. But real quick, before we dive into that, we did not get any for crying out louds.
We did not.
But to bring everyone up to speed, we did get a new thing we're tracking.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Jackson has now died for the first time. So that's a new thing we're tracking.
Daniel likes to die. And just for people wondering, Jeff, the way we're going to count this, okay, is when Michael Shanks, who is playing Daniel Jackson or some version of Daniel Jackson,
okay,
dies on when you are led. Let's put it this way: when you are led to believe that Daniel Jackson is dead on screen, not some off-screen thing. Like, when you see him die on screen, Michael Shanks has a lot of death scenes. Let's just put it that way.
They're like, you're good at this. Let's do this a bunch.
There's actually, I'm thinking off the top of my head, there are a few other Michael Shanks non-Daniel Jackson death scenes in the show as well, which is just, maybe we should just change it to Michael Shanks death scenes.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
That might actually, that's what we're going to do. This is no longer just Daniel Jackson. This is Michael Shanks death scenes.
Awesome.
Because as sci-fi goes, sometimes characters do other stuff. They get taken over, whatever,
All kinds of things. Anything can happen. It's one of the cool things about sci-fi. Another cool thing about sci-fi is the way it can package messages for the viewer. Brent, what did you get out of this one?
That is a professional transition there, Jeff.
Right, thanks.
That's a segue that you couldn't write any better. JMS couldn't write that one better. Hey, Jeff, listen, I've had a complaint for the last couple of weeks about some of these Stargate things.
Really? Okay.
It's that, and not every week, but it's been more than once now. Specifically, I'm thinking of Emancipation and the First Commandment, where they'll present a problem, but never discuss it and just leave it there. That's not what happened here. This episode could be a Star Trek episode.
100%.
You could pluck this out, put Captain Kirk as the landing party, or Riker, or any of those guys, and Captain Pike. But that's probably more Captain Pike type of situation. Anyway, but they put it in. They showed you both sides, because you certainly could understand the dilemma that SG-1 felt.
Yeah.
We've brought them here because you guys have done this thing for us. And Shackle's now here. They're going to go back and tell Apophis. Apophis is going to come and just obliterate. He's not even going to just go away. He's going to come obliterate everything if he can't figure out who you are. This is our fault. And Daniel Jackson says it at some point: because we've done this, we now feel obliged to help you. But then you hear the Nox go, we don't need your help. We don't need your help. Jeff, let me ask you a question as a first-time viewer, because in my head, I always know, yeah, they got that city and they can do the invisibility thing, and they've got other ways of doing stuff. It's fine. At what point did you ever really understand that the Nox can actually take care of themselves even against the Goa'uld?
Immediately, I had the impression that they were going to be okay, but I didn't really understand how.
Okay.
I don't think that when he says you have to go, it wasn't that naive, ignorant, like the native tribe that's, been hidden forever saying, oh, just leave. We're fine. He clearly had that confidence of, we're good, just go. And then the second you found out that they were the ones with the invisibility technology, they're good. Worst case, they just disappear. They lose their little village. Like, that's their worst case scenario.
And even if they disappear, because apparently they're phasing out, because you can shoot through wherever it's not like you just disappear, but you're still solid and we can do stuff to you. You just go to a different plane of existence or something. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not Kevin Bacon Hollow Man kind of a thing. It's whole different thing.
And very clearly the Nox are a much older race. They have technology that is well beyond that of Earth, well beyond that of the Goa'uld. And it has made them effectively pacifists, but they can still defend themselves. And not defend meaning we can fight back against anybody who's fighting us. We can go through that. So a couple of lines, probably the biggest one is, the very young do not always do as they're told. And even Jack says at the very end, that's something worth taking home.
Yep.
In case you didn't know what the message was going to be, let me slap you over the head with it. The very young do not always do as they're told. Fighting is not the only way to deal with enemies. Talk about holding up a mirror to society. Just this, well, you poor people, we've got to come and rescue you. and take care of you. You don't really know the danger that is out there. Now, here's the thing. It's possible they were right, though.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, by all accounts, Jack and the team were like, no, these guys are going to obliterate you. They're going to bring fire and you guys will burn because you don't have water.
Right.
And what really stood out to me, and I never really thought about this before, was honestly, if Antaeus just said, Antaeus didn't even need to show Jack the city up in the sky.
No.
If he would have just been like, hey, listen, what, like, you know what he did? You know, the first time that all of this broke through was it was at the end, kind of in the climax piece. And Antaeus finally went, what are you so afraid of?
Yes.
Antaeus asked a question and he's like, what's going on with you? He's like, we're going to be okay because of XYZ. And Antaeus started communicating, not just demanding.
Mm-hmm.
As let's just call it, as he is the superior race in this, the superior technology, you know, it's kind of on him to not be this haughty, snooty, everything that we thought Jack and the team were being towards them, they were actually being towards Jack and the team.
Yeah.
And when they stopped doing that, they suddenly could communicate and all of a sudden we're friends. However, the downside of that, and Jackson figured this out, they're going to bury the Stargate now, you know, and they're not worried about Apophis coming back and shooting them down from space. Like, they'll be fine. But what this also means is, hey, if we would have listened, we could have left, but we also could have come back and developed a relationship and been friends. But they're going to bury the Stargate and we can't do that now. We've lost out on the opportunity because we didn't listen.
Mm-hmm.
The very young do not always do as they're told. You know what really jumped out to me though is, and this is a direct tie into where we are in Babylon 5, Jeff. So Nefreu's talking to, I think it was Jack, and he's like, why do you want to fight him? And Jack goes, I don't want to fight him. And Nefreu goes, don't. And Jack's like, well, I have to. And he's like, no, you don't. Jeff, that was the conclusion that Sheridan, spoiler alert to anyone who hasn't watched Babylon 5. That's the conclusion that Sheridan came to with the Shadows and the Vorlons.
It's how they won, right?
They won by not fighting. We're going to win by pulling back. I'm not even going to fight you. You can't fight me because I'm not fighting back. It's not a fight because I'm not engaging in this anymore. Go away. I refuse to take part of this anymore. And they won. Like,
yeah.
It's like, you don't actually have to fight. There are ways around this. Now, you and I also both know that there are times in life when when somebody has to be taken care of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there is a time in real life for fisticuffs when you have to use your muscle, at least as far as or maybe I'm just not that enlightened yet, Jeff.
Well, you know, it really strikes me, you know, my daughter and I, she more than me, I do it part-time, but we train in Aikido. Aikido is a martial art, Japanese martial art, and it's really based on avoiding the fight. So you learn various arts. Like if you take Taekwondo or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or, you know, it's about strikes and joint locks, and it's about hurting and, you know, putting your opponent into submission. Yeah. Aikido is it's similar to judo in that it uses your opponent's momentum, but it's not to hurt them. It's basically to neutralize them. You put them on the ground, and then there's a concept we follow called ma'ai, and ma'ai is space. So you come and swing at me, I learn an art to use your arm and take you down to the ground, and then I back away. Hey, no, that's not going to happen. I got you. You're not going to hit me. I protect myself. But I put you on the ground. I don't try and hurt you. I take care of you, and I create my eye. And if you come back at me, I do it again.
Yeah.
Right. And then eventually I just create more and more my eye until I take off. But even in that, like we talk about that need, you get to a point where you're like, all right, I'm going to have to strike, you know? And so they
because
learn,
you won't stop.
It's not, there's no escape. There's nowhere for you to run to. And this person's not stopping, but that's like last resort.
It actually reminds me of something that happened with my son 2 summers ago. I think he was in summer camp at one of the kind of like YMCA type situation. I get a phone call. He'd been in a fight. All right. Now you gotta understand, my son at 9 years old is a 2nd degree black belt. Here in like another year or so, he's going to get his 3rd degree. Like the kid can handle himself. The kid's also huge.
I say it's not a small average nine or whatever.
The kid is huge. The kid can handle himself, and he you know what I've learned about as I've been around people who are of advanced ranks in martial arts, you'd never know by just looking at him on the street. You'd never know. And my kid's one of those. He's in this deal. And I'm like, oh geez, he got into a fight. Okay, what's going on? I got in there and I found out, and we're talking. And basically what happened was this kid started attacking him, and he took the kid and basically kind of what you're talking, he put him down on the ground. I mean, and the kid freaked out and started crying. But he just put him down on the ground. He didn't hurt him, didn't punch, didn't kick him, but he neutralized him, used his techniques, and just sort of was like, no, you're not doing this right now. Like, my kid could have ripped this dude a new one, but he didn't. He showed restraint. And I looked at the camp director. I was like, what do you want from him? Your camp guys weren't doing their job. I'm not getting him in trouble, and he shouldn't be in trouble here.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, but it just, we have to kind of, for everybody involved. I'm like, I understand that, but I'm not accepting any marks against him. Like, if anything, he showed restraint and protection of his personal self, which is his individual human right to protect his own body. He wasn't even jumping in to save somebody else. He's just protecting himself. Like, yeah. Anyway, it does remind me of this though, talking about just deciding not to fight. Perhaps two of the greatest movements in history that affected the most change ever were non-violent movements. I'm thinking specifically of the movement with Gandhi in India and the movement with Dr. Martin Luther King right here in our own home country.
There you go.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Non-violent movements, and it won. It won. And then there's this just, I mean, gosh, the discussion on this was great. Jack goes, hey, aren't you afraid of these people? And he goes, we're not afraid. Well, get afraid, because fear makes you do some stupid stuff sometimes.
Sure does. Sure does.
But again, I mean, Jeff, this just could have been its own. You'd pop this in this is why sci-fi is so great.
Yeah.
This is why we do Babylon 5 for the first time. This is why we're doing Stargate SG-1 for the first time, because sci-fi can take on these messages in a way that other genres can't. You're not going to see this in a court procedural drama. You're not going to see this in an ER episode.
Mm-mm.
You're not going to see this in NCIS or in some Western film show or something. Like, you're just not going to see this. Ultimately, what is the message? Your way is not the only way.
Yeah.
And you need to respect that. Jeff, this is as high as you can get. This is a 5 chevron episode all the way through. And I got to be honest with you, when we first started talking about this and we started going, and I was kind of going, okay, so you'll do the first time reaction. I'll do hey, let's look for the message and we'll kind of see it. Cause I couldn't obviously watch this for the first time again. And I'm starting, but is Stargate really? And my first hit always went to the Nox. I'm like, well, yeah, there's that episode. And, oh yeah, then there's that other episode. And, oh yeah, there's that other episode. Okay. But the Nox was always the first one my mind went to, was the young do not always do what they're told.
And then just that whole thing, your way is not the only way. One of the things that I practice, and I don't know if it makes me a better person or not, but it definitely keeps my my anger levels and frustration levels at a lower point than many other people are at this time, is I actively invite dissenting opinions, right? So when people see something, whether it's a social issue, an economic issue, political, whatever, hey, you don't feel the way I do about it. Hey, I don't want to argue with you. I want to understand. I want to hear that and understand, because I have my way and it's right. I mean, of course it's the right way.
Right.
But actually maybe it's not, and I have changed my mind on things before where it's like, oh, that is a very compelling argument. You've presented a lot of stuff. I reflect, it's like, well, maybe that is right. And if we could just do that, right? I'm not saying we go and change our minds, but if we could seek to understand instead of fight to be right, sure be a whole lot cooler to live here.
Well, speaking of whole lot cooler, hey, Jeff, I give this 5 chevrons. You, my friend, have the responsibility of slotting this one into our ranking of the episodes. Now, our current ranking stands at this. We have Cold Lazarus at number 1. We have The Broken Divide at number 2, Children of the Gods, Enemy Within, First Commandment, and Emancipation. Jeff, where are you going to place this episode, The Nox?
The question I'm asking myself is, did I enjoy this episode and its message enough to move past the lasting impact of another episode that like I am still reeling from after we watched it? And the answer is yes. This is our new number one. This is an awesome episode. Had Armin Shimmerman. It was fun. It was deep. It was challenging. It was really well put together. And it had I didn't talk about it all, but it just had these really subtle little kind of jokes, throughout it. It kind of kept thinking it was just really well
light.
Done. Exactly.
There was some lightness to it. It wasn't super like Cold Lazarus had no jokes whatsoever. It was a heavy episode. This episode had some, and it does it in a way that honestly Stargate does so well.
Yeah.
Not a lot of other sci-fi does humor the way Stargate does.
Yeah, most of them should
never. Yeah, just stop trying to do humor. Yeah, Jeff, I don't know if you noticed or not. I actually already slotted it in at number 1 before we ever started recording.
Oh,
so because I knew that's where it was going to wind up.
There you go.
Well, that's going to do it for the Knocks. Next time, the episode we are watching, the title is Brief Candle. Do you care to venture a guess as to what that episode could be about?
So candle sometimes is a measurement of something. I'm thinking of air or something like that. So often, it's definitely time. It's a measure of time often. But what I'm imagining is they're going to go to planet P4763 Alpha Bravo, whatever, name that rolls off the tongue.
Well, they don't use military terms for letters.
No?
No. Well, when they're trying to do a military thing, but normally it's just the letter. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's too bad. They're going to be exploring, and somebody, I'm going to guess Daniel, is going to get trapped in a cave or fall into a pit or something, and the air supply is going to be an issue where we have to get to him. He's going to run out of air. He has a brief candle in which we can save him.
You're a good guesser, Jeff.
You're very kind. I appreciate that.
Well, we will see next time here on Stargate SG-1 for the first time. Hey, everybody out there. Thank you so much for joining us. And please remember to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a rating and review. Apple Podcasts is the primary place, but if they do it, Audible, you can do it on Audible if you're listening to us there. Where else leaves? Podchaser lets you leave reviews.
Good Pods
lets you leave reviews. So if you could leave us a rating and review, we would love to be able to hear that. And please be sure to share this podcast with someone out there who loves Stargate SG-1, or maybe somebody who needs to fall in love with the show for the very first time. So until next time, we're going to get out of here.
Hey, Brent.
Hey, Jeff. What's up?
Will you stop doing that?
Oh, for crying out loud.